Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going through this book again. We will be continuing our read through of History of the World Map by Map. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. What we do here is go through this book together. I'm going in completely blind, not having read anything beforehand. All I do is just look at the titles of each map, and I kind of piece together a theme. And today in the United States, it is the 4th of July. Well, I guess it's the 4th of July everywhere else, but in America, this is like the most important national holiday. And it celebrates the creation of the United States during the American Revolution. And the next map that we have is the American Revolution. So I have to do this map today. Normally I would have done this map sometime in August, but I can't pass up this opportunity. Also, we're going to be talking about our neighbors downstairs in South America and talk about their independence revolution. And then, for all of those who are like, oh, you shouldn't be praising America so much, they did so many atrocities, blah, 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 don't worry, we're going to talk about that too, and talk about, I assume, the Trail of Tears. This is the fate of the Native Americans. So we'll cover this too, for anyone who thinks that, maybe, I haven't read this, if it seems too pro-America to you, don't worry, we'll talk about like the darkest chapter in American history as well. So let's get into it and read about the American Revolution. Starting with the War in the North, 1775 to 1780. American patriots faced an experienced British army, but they proved their mettle in initial battles in Massachusetts. General George Washington marshaled his inexperienced patriot troops through a difficult campaign, avoiding decisive defeats to reach a stalemate at the north, and scoring 2 morale-boosting successes, Trenton in 1776 and the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. So the northern colonies, this kind of slate blue color, you can see all of them up here. It looks like we have Maine, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, Massachusetts. Does that say Vermont? Does that say Vermont? I think it does. I can't see from the single. But yeah. Then we have the War in the South, 1778 to 1781. The British opened a new front in the south in 1778 and scored a major victory with the capture of Charleston in 1780. But the Patriots refused to give in, and slowly the tide turned against the Loyalists, culminating in an important Patriot victory at Cowpens, South Carolina. I've never heard of that. Cowpens, South Carolina, in January 1781. Which proved that the British southern strategy could be countered. Southern colonies are this kind of mint green here. So who do we have here? Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. From the looks of it. From what I recall, like, the British were doing, they're very, like, formal. They all stand in a line and they, like, shoot with their muskets, right? But a lot of the Patriot Army was doing guerrilla warfare, which the British weren't very experienced with. So it really threw them off. And that's how we got so many interesting victories. Defeat of the British in 1781. In the final stages of the war, the focus shifted to the central region. Costly Pyrrhic victories for the British were followed by a decisive intervention by French naval forces from mid-1781. Washington and French General Rochambeau coordinated their forces to trap General Charles Cornwallis, leader of the British Expeditionary Force, in Yorktown, where he surrendered. The siege of Yorktown is marked by this symbol here. So let's find Yorktown, which is right here. Yorktown. Yes, Rochambeau. If you know, like the game Rock, Paper, Scissors, when I was growing up, we called it Rochambeau. We'd go, Rochambeau, Rochambeau. Did anyone else do that? That just ricocheted me back to like first grade reading that name. We didn't call it Rock, Paper, Scissors. We called it Rochambeau. Interesting. I'd completely forgotten reading that name. The Birth of a Nation, 1782 to 1783. With no realistic prospect of maintaining the war on American soil, the British were forced to recognize American independence. In the Treaty of Paris, the Americans won control of their waters and vast territories, which now extended as far west as the Mississippi River. The treaty was officially signed on September 3rd, 1783, and approved by the Continental Congress a few months later. The U.S. border is this green line here, which you can see all over here, and down here as well. Can you see? Right there, I guess this was still Spain at the time, makes sense. And then up here through the Great Lakes, around Maine. Interesting. Came out way bigger than they had planned, right? 1783, so this isn't even oh wait, never mind. This is, like, I guess this. I see. So it's the Mississippi River here is what it is. So yeah, not even the Louisiana Purchase yet. That's going to be in a couple more decades. And they get everything over here. But you can see here it says Indian Reserve. Interesting. I didn't know that we'd gotten like all of this in 1783. I didn't realize it was so big. I thought maybe it was like this much. And the rest we got in 1803. But no, it makes sense we got all the way to the Mississippi. Interesting. Alright, let's read all of these little boxes up here. This one says October 1777. British General. I've never seen this name either. Burgoyne. British General Burgoyne, marching south from Canada to cut off the rebellious northern colonies, suffers a devastating defeat at the Battle of Saratoga. That's the Battle of Saratoga. All these little symbols here. Let's see. Red is U.S. victory. Purple would be a British victory, so we can see down here. There's a bunch down here in the south. And yellow is a French victory. Looks like it's more naval, right? Maybe up north. Nope, but it looks like it's more naval. Interesting. I think there's a battle way over here, too. Do you see that? I never heard of this battle. Oh, there is a box. Let's read it. It's February 1779. American commander George Clark leads an army of 170 men to lay siege to the British fort at Vincennes. Wow. And it was a U.S. victory. Looks like there's Clark there marching through the frontier, going to Cahokia, and sneak attack. It's a long sneak attack. What's happening over here? In November 1778, following a violent storm that damages much of the fleet, French Admiral Charles Hector d'Estaing, is that what it says? d'Estaing, departs for the West Indies, a great loss for the Patriots. Yeah, that is a bummer. He got there, it looks like there was a storm, so he just peaced out. Literally. In June 1775, Patriots show their determination at the fierce Battle of Bunker Hill near Boston. The British are forced to evacuate Boston. Yeah, that's a very famous battle. I'd say Saratoga is probably like the most famous battle during the Revolution, with Bunker Hill being like number 2. The American victory, at least Yorktown's a pretty famous one. Let's see, October 1781. Cornwallis surrenders at Yorktown, effectively ending the war and leading the American independence from Britain. Yeah, true. Okay, so see, it says British victory. Oh, that's U.S. victory. British victory here. Is that what this is? Oh, that's the French. September 1781, French fleet chases off British fleet at the Battle of the Capes, depriving Cornwallis of naval support and trapping him in Yorktown. So yeah, that's September, and then October he surrendered. A year before that, from March to May 1780, it says major British victory in Charleston threatens to cost the Patriots the South. Yeah, it looks like they were just tearing up the South here. But you can see that there were marches down here and up there to fight the British. More successful up there. There's Cowpens. It says January 1781 Patriot victory at Cowpens. Over here, it says October 1763. The British issue a proclamation line declaring lands to the west off limits to colonists to prevent further expansion into Native American territories. That's 1763, so that's before all this went down. So I guess that's this line here they're talking about. Saying you can't pass this line. And it looks like they built a bunch of forts out there to try to maintain that. Down here, it says in March 1781, a costly win proves a Pyrrhic victory for the British. And then here's also a very famous moment in December 1776. Washington crosses the Delaware and scores a symbolic victory, having suffered a series of defeats in and around New York. So that's this very, very famous painting here. It was Christmas Day, and all of the British were sleeping in or celebrating, and George Washington and his men rowed over the river, freezing cold river, on boats to sneak attack them on Christmas Day, which is kind of like, stinky to attack on a holiday, but it's happened many times in history. This is a famous one. But yeah, I guess I didn't talk about it here, but July 4th is where in Philadelphia, which let's find it here on the map, Philadelphia is the date that the Americans signed their Declaration of Independence, which wasn't, the official start to America. Like I said, that's in the 1780s after the war, but it was the moment where we said, nope, we're doing this on our own. And yeah, that's the date that we celebrate. But let's head further south and go a couple decades in the future to talk about something very similar happening down here in South America. We're starting with the Admirable Campaign from 1812 to 1815. Venezuela had already become a republic once in 1811. The Admirable Campaign, the first with Bolivar in charge, was part of its second attempt, but it also proved short-lived. Bolivar fled to the Caribbean, where he wrote the Letter from Jamaica, a revolutionary call to arms. So the Admirable Campaign is shown by this maroon arrow, which you can see coming from Cartagena. Down here, there's a battle. And then up all the way to Caracas. There are other battles there. Simon Bolivar, if you don't know, he's down here. Was pretty much like the George Washington figure of South America. San Martin would have been like the Thomas Jefferson, I guess. To compare, it's kind of hard. Let's talk about Haiti. Haiti, 1791 to 1816. Very successful revolution for Haiti. Haiti, the most profitable colony in the Caribbean, previously known as Saint-Domingue, had won its independence through a brutal and protracted slave rebellion from 1791 to 1804. In 1816, Bolivar found an ally in the Haitian leaders, who armed him for a return to Venezuela on the condition that if he was successful, he would free the slaves there. In 1817, Bolivar called for the abolition of slavery in Venezuela. We move on to Gran Colombia from 1818 to 1822. Bolivar boldly switched the theater of conflict to Colombia, marching his army across the Andes into the heart of enemy territory, and in 1819, defeating the Spanish at the Battle of Boyacá. Back in Venezuela 2 years later, he gathered his forces, including the savage Llanero cavalry, to win victory at Carabobo, allowing him to proclaim the Republic of Gran Colombia and become its president. So his march is this dotted line here, starting here in Angostura. Looks like following the Orinoco River and marching all the way down here to Bombona. Looks like there's Boyacá. Big battle near Bogota. I believe our victories are these maroon swords here. Then we have Brazil, 1807 to 1822. Brazil followed a laborious path to independence. It had become wealthier than its parent kingdom, Portugal, and hosted the Portuguese monarchy when it was displaced by Napoleon in 1807. When John VI returned to Lisbon in 1821, his son Pedro remained behind as regent, and in 1822 declared himself Emperor Pedro I of Brazil, establishing an independent empire that lasted, along with slavery, until 1889. And it's all gray here, but I guess it's showing you the borders of Brazil there. Maybe it'll talk more about it in the boxes, I don't know. Then we have San Martin and O'Higgins, 1817 to 1822. In southern South America, revolutionary armies under José de San Martin and Bernardo O'Higgins achieved daring victories over Spanish forces, first at Chacabuco in 1817 and then at Peru in 1821. After a surprise naval attack, O'Higgins became leader of Chile, while San Martin gave way to Bolivar after meeting him in Guayaquil in 1822. So San Martin or O'Higgins's marches here are these purple arrows. Purple is kind of brownish. I guess it is brown, yeah. Let me see. Get my light on over here. Yeah, it's brown. There we go. That light's too bright for me. I gotta keep it over there a little bit. And their victories are these brown swords. So you can see a bunch down here and what would this then Chile? I'm sure it's Chile today, yeah. But they went down there. All over this area here, Valparaiso, yeah, that's Chile today. And then sailing up the coast all the way to Guayaquil, which is in Ecuador today. Let's talk about Sucre, Bolivar, and Peru, 1822-1826. Bolivar and his most able general, Antonio José de Sucre, moved south, liberating Ecuador in 1822 after Sucre's victory at Pinchicha and taking possession of Peru after San Martin retired from the field. Sucre defeated the Spanish forces at the Battle of Ayacucho in 1824. By 1826, all Spanish territory had been liberated. So Bolivar's march is this blue arrow you can see coming from Lima, the way down, checking out Lake Titicaca, going down here toward Potosi. And Sucre's dotted, so he went this way. There's the Battle of Ayacucho. And Bolivar victories, which is of course Ayacucho, and up here as well. Let's read all of these little boxes. There's one up here in Jamaica, which must be Bolivar's letter. Ooh, there we go. Alright, September 6th, 1815, Bolivar finishes his letter from Jamaica while in exile. Over here in Haiti in 1804, recognition of Haitian sovereignty and independence is finally achieved after years of bloody struggle. Down in Caracas, July 24th, 1783, Simón Bolívar is born in Caracas, although he travels to Europe to study. July 1817, Bolívar creates a base deep in the hinterland near Angostura and would use it as a starting point for his campaigns. Let's head over here. May 24th, 1822, Ecuador is liberated after Sucre's battle at the Battle of Pinchicha. Just right here. July 26th, 1822, San Martin's replaced by Bolivar. Down here, my goodness, this is awkward. Come on. What are you stuck on? There we go. So annoying when the book is long like this. It's so hard to navigate. 1821, a daring naval raid by San Martin with the help of British allies helps secure the liberation of Peru. Wow. That looks like it's in Huacho. Is that what that says? I think so. And then down here in Uruguay, in 1813, Uruguay declares itself independent from what would become Argentina. You can see the red here. I guess that's the Spanish-controlled region. Yes, Spanish territory in 1812. It would be split into Gran Colombia. You can't see Gran Colombia. Gran Colombia is up there in the orange, even in Panama, right? We have Peru, Bolivia, Rio de la Plata, Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile. But we have another box over here that says 1811 Paraguay declares itself independent from what would become Argentina. Yes, yes. Oh, and then we have these. October 26, 1825, after the Loyalist forces have been dealt with, Sucre and Bolivar climbed the legendary Silver Mountain together to toast free South America. And over here it says December 9th, 1824, Sucre crushes the last remnants of Spanish forces at the Battle of Ayacucho. Yeah, we covered Ayacucho on my channel already. And talked about the Battle of Ayacucho and how it's so important for not just Peru, but all of South America, because it was the final defeat of the Spanish. And then Bolivia is named after Simón Bolívar. That's back when they had the coast there before the War of the Pacific. Interesting map. I like this map. I like this one better than the American one. To be honest, I'm kind of disappointed by the American one. Speaking of America, let's talk about war crimes. Listen, someone commented one time, like, why are you always laughing when you talk about very sad things? It's a nervous laugh. It's me being like, Let's talk about the fate of the Native Americans here. Starting with pioneer trails, 1821 to 1861. Settlers organized caravans of ox-drawn wagons and forged new routes westward across the Great Plains in a bid to settle in new lands. For example, in 1843, about 1,000 settlers made the difficult journey along the Oregon Trail. Other groups, such as the Mormons, were escaping religious persecution and forged the Mormon Trail, aiming to establish their own community. Yeah, let's look at all the trails here. Let's see. So the solid line is the California Trail, which splinters off from the Oregon Trail, looks like. Oregon Trail, if you've ever played the video game, you know it starts in Independence, Missouri. And you come all this way, so you wind up here. If you're going to California, you take this trail. And if you're going to Oregon, you take this trail. Was interesting. We were traveling last month up here in Washington, and we went through Oregon, and we, whenever we stopped at a rest stop, it would have Oregon Trail facts and about the travelers that had stopped there before, and it was very interesting because it was still places that were just wide open with like really nothing there except the road we were driving on and the rest stop. So you really got to see what these people saw when they were going west. Yeah, it was really a lot to take in, especially when you can see the mountains in the distance. I can't imagine crossing those. And then so I'm in Reno right now, so there's Pyramid Lake, which we're very near, and there's Truckee, which are also very near. I'm right here, between those places. So yeah, we were along the California Trail. Number 2 says, Claiming the Old Northwest, 1783. Oh, I forgot about the other trails. There's the Santa Fe Trail and the Southern Trail. Southern Trail is this dotted line here. Starting, looks like from St. Louis. Going along this way. I guess it's not as mountainous, but it's more dry. It'll be harder to find food, I think. And then the Santa Fe Trail just going to Santa Fe, which is now in New Mexico. All right, claiming the Old Northwest. Following independence, the legal boundary drawn by the British no longer applied, allowing Euro-American settlers to move into the western regions beyond the Appalachians. That's true, we talked about that line that they drew, right? The settlers dealt with Native American resistance by inflicting a crushing defeat at the Battle of Fallen Timbers in 1794. The last of the resistance in the region fell at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811, with some settler sites already set farther west. So battles are these purple swords here. We can see them up here. I haven't heard of that first one, but Tippecanoe is a pretty famous battle there. And we have the Gold Rush, 1849 to 1855. The discovery of gold in California set off a frenzied gold rush in 1849, as hopeful prospectors poured into the region to profit from this new find, leading to a genocide of the Native American population. Between 1850 and 1860, war, disease, and starvation reduced Native American numbers in California from 150,000 to 35,000. The pattern was repeated when gold was discovered in other parts of North America. Major gold sites are denoted by these little bullions here. You can see in Colorado, way down here, and then here in California. Oh, and down here as well in Arizona, it looks like. Oh, and up here. Where's that? Montana? And up here as well. Didn't realize there were so many other gold rushes there. You only really hear about these ones. The Creek War, 1813 to 1814. A regional war between opposing factions of Alabama's Creek Nation turned into a wider conflict as settler militia units became involved. The British and Spanish supplied the arms to the Red Stick Creeks in an effort to curb U.S. expansion. However, superior U.S. firepower led to crushing defeats and the loss of vast swaths of territory in modern-day Alabama and Georgia. Creek War battles are these blue swords, and you can see them all down here. And the Seminole Wars. This one's a little more famous, I think, than the Creek, infamous than the Creek War. 1817 to 1858. Already forced into reservation territory after the First Seminole War, which was 1817 to 18, the Seminoles of Florida resisted further relocation, and under their formidable chief Osceola, launched a guerrilla war from hideouts in the Everglades. The U.S. expended much blood and resources attempting to suppress them, only succeeding once Osceola was captured while parleying under a flag of truce. That's really mean. That's not how you do things. But you can see the Seminole Wars down here all throughout Florida, parts of Georgia, and down here even in like part of Alabama there. Maybe the Panhandle. And then we have the Trail of Tears from, can you see? Can you see? I don't think you can see the whole box. I try to put this at a good angle so you could see everything, and it never works. The Trail of Tears, 1830 to 1850. After the passing of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, around 16,000 Cherokee of the Southeast were rounded up at gunpoint, penned in sanitary camps, and transported to newly designated Indian Territory. Nearly 1/4 perished en route. Many other tribes suffered similar forced relocations, collectively referred to as the Trail of Tears. And this blood red arrows you can see is the trail heading into this area here, being forced to walk at gunpoint. Men, women, and children, elderly, very, very young. Definitely the darkest chapter in American history. And we have the Plains Indian Wars, 1850 to 1890. A prolonged phase of bloody conflict between the Native Americans of the Great Plains and the U.S. Army, centered mainly on the U.S. imperative to secure the transcontinental travel routes from Native American aggression. That was a really long sentence. Prolonged phase of bloody conflict between the Native Americans and the Great Plains, centered mainly on the U.S. imperative to secure transcontinental travel routes from Native American aggression. That's a very long sentence. Tribal chiefs such as Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull fought heroically, but were unable to stop the U.S. hunger for new territory. With the final loss of their lands, Native Americans were forced into designated reservations to make way for a new nation. These battles are white swords, and you can see that there are many battles during this time. They're all dated, they're all noted here, but my goodness, it's way too many to point out, kind of like all the other battles here. Such a sad little chapter. What are these little green dots there? Reservations? Oh my goodness. Oh, I see. All the way out here. Oh boy. It's still sad to this day, but man, at least like now we know better that that's bad. You shouldn't do that to other people just because they're indigenous. But you know, it's sorry, that was my chair. It's like these wounds will never heal, right? It's just devastating. Let's see, it says here in 1847 the Mormons arrived in Salt Lake City. 1824, more than 2,000 settlers reached Texas via the Santa Fe Trail. What else do we have? Over here, 1830, Indian Territory was in present-day Oklahoma and Arkansas. Some boxes up here. 1794, decisive victory for the U.S. ends major hostilities in the Old Northwest until 1811. That's Fallen Timbers. Over here says 1825, Lake Erie is linked to the Hudson River via the Erie Canal, forming a northern route to the Midwest. I guess allowing more people into this area here. I don't think there's any other boxes here. It's just all very sad, depressing battles. It makes my heart heavy to think about how these people were just living their lives and then suddenly they were fighting for everything that they knew and they all lost terribly. It's so sad. But that is like the indigenous story all over the world. That's the story in Australia, the story in Canada, Mexico, like anywhere that you have indigenous culture like that. But that is America's story. So anyone that's, goodness, when I talk about other atrocities in other countries, like whenever I talk about wars in former Yugoslavia, or the Armenians in Turkey during World War I, you know what I mean? And people are always, well, you're American, and Americans did all these terrible things, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yes, both can be true at the same time. I am not for any of this, obviously, is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. I am going to spend my 4th of July in Virginia City, which is about 45 minutes from Reno. And it's an old mining town, a silver town. And a lot of the old architecture is still there from, gosh, like the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. Place where Mark Twain stayed and rode is still there. And it's very America. It's very raw America there in Virginia City, so it's kind of the best time to go there and see fireworks and things and go to all the haunted places. Man, that place is so haunted, you guys have no idea. Anyway, that's going to be it for tonight. So I do hope that you found this video relaxing and educational. I stopped where I did because you know who's coming up next? France. We've got French Revolution, and we got this guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, this like random guy named Napoleon. I don't know if you've heard of him, but we'll talk about him next time. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational, and I do hope that you have a good night.